Hi, Kate.
Hi, Deirdre. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Secretly, despite all the difficult things in the world, I'm kind of excited this week to be in New York City and not in Las Vegas. So that's my like dirty little secret of there not being a CES this year. I don't know how you're feeling about that.
I'm feeling very good about it. Not as many steps, but I'm excited to sleep in my own bed tonight and actually get good sleep. So
that's a good point. Not as much walking and but making up for not as many calories consumed as well, I suppose. Well, our topic, we talked about this when we connected last week, Kate. Our topic for this discussion is women in marketing. And I think, for everyone in the audience, Kate and I talked about that a little bit. Like, we're both obviously women leaders in the marketing industry. I think a more interesting kind of way to look at it is more like leadership in marketing and conversations around, great marketing in what is unprecedented times. So I think we're probably going to focus more on that. And I thought one way to start it off, Kate, is just to introduce yourself, and I'll introduce myself a little so that anyone on the call who doesn't know us or hasn't met either of us in the past can just at least have a scope of like what we do at our organizations and the role we play there.
Sounds great. Hi, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here, honored to be with Brand Innovators today. My name is Kate Trumbull. I am Vice President of Advertising and Hispanic Marketing at Domino's. My team and I work with our creative agency, Work in Progress, to build memorable breakthrough advertising. So work on the TV, the packaging, the radio, all the consumer touch points and the tone of the brand for our general market and Hispanic market. And I've been with Domino's a little over 9 years.
Amazing. And yeah, for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Deirdre Lester. I am the CRO here at Barstool Sports. So I oversee all of our advertising and sponsorship partners, as well as all of our brand licensing partnerships. I've been here about 3 years at Barstool, and excited to look ahead to the year ahead we have coming. We have a lot going on in our world. So that is like a fascinating number of years in today's kind of world. I don't meet too many people that stay at one company for as long as you have, Kate. And I thought that was a kind of a nice jumping off point to talk about just how are you able to kind of grow within an organization and really advance to be kind of really high up within the organization, having started 9 years ago, in a totally different role than you're in today. How do you get, without jumping to go to another organization, how do you get, out of your comfort zone and move into new roles? Is that, partly your own, personal growth and career ambition, or is it the Domino's culture, or is it a little bit of both? Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's both. The first thing I'll say is at Domino's, 90% of our franchisees started out as drivers or CSRs answering phone calls in the stores. And it's a really exciting fact, because what that means is we've built a culture on people progressing, working really hard, and becoming owners. And so it is part of our culture to always drive for opportunity for not only our team members in stores, but for our corporate team members. And I'm really fortunate. I came into Domino's from Procter & Gamble, and I took a Hispanic marketing role, quickly moved into a field marketing role where I touched our stores and operations. And that was so critical, because everything we do is surrounded around supporting our stores. If you don't make it, bake it, or take it, you're supporting the people who do. To the point that when you walk into our headquarters, and when we host a Brand Innovators event, we'll get to do this. You walk in, and the first thing you see is a store behind the glass in the middle of our building. And you walk up the stairs, and you just keep seeing the store, because that's the heartbeat of our organization. And so I was fortunate to get a taste of operations and the field early in my career. I managed 8 people that actually really set me up for COVID, because they were all remote across the country where we have major corporate markets. And Then I moved to the digital team, and it was kind of like in a cube alone, trying to work on designing and launching our loyalty program, Piece of the Pie Rewards, which was a really exciting role where I got to touch a lot of parts of the business. And from there led digital marketing, and then from there advertising. So I would say at Domino's, we're one brand. I think about being at Procter & Gamble, and we've over 100 brands, and you move people to different brands to grow them. At Domino's, we have one focused brand. So it's really important to move people to different parts of the business to grow their skill set, to keep them engaged, and to ensure that you have a great bench when you're looking to fill roles. So I have been fortunate. It's part of our culture. It's part of our DNA. I'm also fortunate to have wonderful mentors who have taken a risk on putting me in roles that I didn't have the experience on my resume, but was able to ask the right questions and was fortunate to build great teams and try to really improve processes to continue to progress.
That's really great. Good for you. Yes, it's interesting you described, P&G in that way, where there's just so many brands under one big umbrella that it's hard to really be able to touch and get to know all of them. And probably the time you were there, or even if you were to stay there for a decade. I feel that way here sometimes at Barstool. You see on the wall behind me, it's a mural of many of our personalities. Our founder, our CEO are here.
Awesome. I love it.
And one of the things that's hard is that we have a constant, bench of new talent coming in. We've recently hired a whole bunch of a new cast of young talent that are sort of the rising stars within Barstool, and just getting to know them all and kind of understand what makes them tick, and then follow in the direction that their content's going. We kind of give people full license here to create, and those that really push themselves. And a lot of what I see them doing is getting to know the more established talent and kind of linking up with them on a particular show or project, and then kind of thinking about, okay, I see how, Dave makes these pizza reviews so successful, and I got to come up with my own thing that I can drive on. But getting kind of close to him and understanding how that comes to life, I think the younger talent really latch on to some of the more established talent to really learn from them. But I love this idea of like being able to kind of go to different areas of the organization and get out of your comfort zone. And that's one of the things I've loved about being here, because I've worked at larger media companies like, an ESPN, and, the shows and the talent are all up in Bristol, and the sales and the marketing and business side are all down in New York City, and we never cross over. Here, we're just like passing one another by in the hallways. They're filming the shows right here in the hallways half the time. So it's just like you really get close to how the sausage gets made, and then it's easier to kind of think about, from a business function standpoint, how you can drive the business forward. One of the things we talked about is Domino's almost seems set up in a way better than most companies this year to weather the storm, which was the pandemic, which, not that you or anyone at Domino's or anyone in the food ordering business saw it coming, but certainly the category saw a lot of surges given, people being stuck at home or afraid to leave home, whatever it might be. You guys already had this like best in class food ordering service and technology set up. But at the same time, with your role and how you message that during a time that is so disrupted, so uncertain, and was changing very dynamically, can you talk a little bit about, messaging during 2020 and how you had to kind of pivot and change on a dime from a creative strategy and messaging and even production standpoint to get the right tone message into consumers' minds, and how you kind of navigated that?
Yeah, so it is really interesting to reflect back. I think, as soon as the pandemic started, the first thing we had to do was look at what we had running on TV. And at the time, we had two great ads that we worked really hard on that hadn't run very long. And we really had to step back and take one of the ads and repurpose it. It was a risky business take on our GPS. technology, and we actually quickly repurposed that in like a week into more of a contactless delivery message, which was obviously the thing that consumers needed at that moment when there was so much fear and concern and worry about getting food safely. So that was one piece. The other carryout spot we had on air was kind of a Cheers throwback, and it was about our Pie Pass technology for carryout. And it showed customers in the store in the lobby, and that just wasn't appropriate for the moment. And so we pulled that immediately and got a retail spot on while we went to the drawing board. And it was a I think everyone feels like it was a very stressful but very kind of important time where we stepped back and we co-wrote a brief with our agency, and we came up with the positioning that Domino's is focused on helping. So if we're focused on helping, what are the messages and what are the ways that a brand like us can help? And the first one from a TV advertising perspective was hiring. There were 22 million people unemployed, and it was a moment where we needed to hire and people needed jobs. And so I think we were the first, if not one of the first, to come out with an ad shot 100% on Zoom of our franchisees in their stores, just talking about getting the job done and their team members and their communities. And that was our first pivot among many. I think, people's psychology about the pandemic obviously changed week by week and month by month, where we had to really focus on safety and sanitation, contactless delivery, contactless carryout early on. And later we could talk about things, that were, I think, more kind of fun, but still very human. And we even, filmed an ad from home about feeding a family of 4 for $3 per person. And it was literally our art director, creative director, and his family kind of demonstrating, a contactless delivery, in a kid's little car. And it was just very, very charming and cute. But it was really about, entertaining your family while you're at home, because we were all stuck at home having to teach kids virtually and entertain them and educate them. And we had a whole contest around that. So that was so creatively, that's where we were focusing on our new service methods that could drive safe and frictionless ordering. The other thing that was really important is what were we going to do in the community? And we launched Feed the Need program, and that was leveraging our phenomenal franchisees in their local communities and giving away 10 million slices of pizza to frontline workers, nurses, grocery store workers. Something people don't really always think about is when kids aren't in school, a lot of times they're not getting a good meal. Like that's where they get one of their best meals in a day. And so we were partnered with the schools to donate there too. So a lot of places where we wanted to think about the messaging, and it was a balance of how can Domino's leverage our resources to help, both through donations and serving the community, but also just through day-to-day getting food to people, because online delivery was way up, as you mentioned early in the conversation.
Yeah, that's great. I love the second part about Feed the Need, and I remember reading about that. It's so important, and I think you're doing it for the right reasons, obviously, to feed the communities. But I think that people today, and especially now, care about the brands that are doing things for their communities, doing things to give back. And so while you might not be standing on a soapbox and making a big, screaming with a megaphone about the fact that you're doing that, people see it and people recognize it, and it's very good for the future health of your brand. I think there was another initiative we talked about a little that you guys did that I thought it struck a chord with me, where Domino's has kind of earmarked a significant investment in those quote unquote frontline employees in year-end bonus. Can you talk a little bit about that initiative?
Yeah, I'm so happy you brought that up. Obviously, the only way we were able to be in business was our team members and their commitment, and their leadership. And so at the end of the year, we offered our corporate and supply chain team members a $1,200 bonus for those eligible to thank them for their service. And acknowledge what everyone had to go through to show up to work during this time. So I'm really happy we did that. I think it was over $9 million commitment. And it was the right thing to do, which is, one of our values. And I would say what was really interesting during the pandemic is we had just kind of launched our new values as we were going in to the pandemic. And that really helped guide a lot of decisions. I know for probably many organizations, but do the right thing and putting our people first are two of those values. And that's why these actions had to line up with those across the board.
That's awesome. Yeah, we've had some recent, little plug for what is going on here at Barstool right now that dovetails nicely with this conversation. A little over 3 weeks ago, our founder, Dave Portnoy, decided to donate a significant amount of his own money into a fund to get the Barstool Fund started, and then challenged a lot of other notable personalities, celebrities, partners of ours, and then just our fans, the Stoolies, to contribute. And in under a month, we've raised over $22 million. And we're in real time, we're giving that money back out to small businesses all around the country that just need help to survive. It seemed like a lot of folks that are submitting to us, got PPP money, got through the summer and the fall, and are just at a breaking point where they can no longer get by. They can't continue to pay their employees and keep them on payroll, or they can do that, but then they can't, make their rent and or mortgage or pay their electric bills to get through the winter. And so we're basically accepting small business applications. We're up over 100 companies now, or businesses that we are basically rescuing right now. And we'll be there. It's not just a one-time grant. It's basically, once you're accepted into our fund, we keep you there until you get through and can open your business back up and operate normally again. And if these are businesses that have been in business, they're the backbone of America. They're the small businesses, the family-owned businesses that have been in business for decades, many of them. And a lot of them, their employees have been with them for tens of years as well. And so it's been remarkable to be a part of as a business that also, while it was very tumultuous for Barstool, just like everyone else this year, we did do really well. Our brand grew a ton. And because we're not just reliant on live sports, we're sports and entertainment, we were able to pivot a lot. It was tiring, it was exhausting, and it was a bit of a roller coaster of a year figuring it all out and working with our partners in the marketing community that were constantly changing their plans and their messages. But it feels good to finish out the year and go into this year doing something to really give back to those smaller businesses that, have operated successfully for so many years and to no fault of their own are just in such a tight spot right now. So
no, it's
anybody that's looking to do something good, there you can go to the Barstool Fund and donate, or you can buy. We have all sorts of merch that we created to also help raise money for the fund as well. But it is a great thing to do, and as a brand, I think it will help us going forward as well.
I love what you're doing. It is phenomenal. It is so needed right now. And there's even a restaurant not far from where I live that you guys just funded, Bomber Restaurant in Ypsilanti, like one of everyone's favorite kind of diners, and there's airplanes on the ceiling, and it just huge kudos. It's much needed, and I think it's really inspiring. And I love that individuals can donate too and be part of that. Part of the movement that needs to happen. Because we're Domino's, right? We're a huge corporation, but we're made up of a lot of small business owners, and we want there to be a healthy restaurant industry. It's good for the economy. It's good for our communities. So I just love that project that you guys are working on.
Yeah, I mean, it is fascinating to think of a brand as big as Domino's. I don't think there's a bigger brand in food ordering and delivery and pizza, certainly in the world. And yet to hear you describe all of the franchisees as, entrepreneurs, is really kind of an interesting perspective on it all. And, it sounds like the company's been not only supportive of those people, but also really rewarding, wanting to give back to them this year for kind of probably working harder than they ever planned to work, right? One thing I want to talk about too, because I think it goes back to what you were saying about, working really closely with your agency team. And we talked about this a little, you're talking about being creative, staying connected with your team, being collaborative. And in a way, when we spoke, you described one of the silver linings of the situation that we were all placed in is that you've become even closer with your team and your agency team than maybe you had been previously. Can you describe that a little bit? I mean, it's definitely, being remote and being on video. We're doing it today, and hopefully there's a great audience of people participating. It's been surprising to me, that there have been some real benefits to that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, surely we all miss the moments by the water cooler and those connection points and just talking about nothing and those spontaneous moments to brainstorm and to pull someone into the office to talk about something unrelated to your normal day. And so I think that there have been real challenges to this, but one of the silver linings and one of the things that has been amazing is, pre-COVID, our agency based in Boulder, Colorado, you travel and see each other once in a while, but mostly, feedback was given, conversations were had over a phone, and the teams would sit in each, room here, room there, and they'd be on mute, and you kind of talk about the feedback and maybe not fully listen like you should. And now we're looking at each other, and we're not just seeing one person from the creative team, we're seeing the whole team. And I think it's creating that human connection of, you really have to listen, and you really have to, it just allows more kind of riffing and brainstorming and human connection, which, by the way, that was the hardest thing in COVID. It's still the hardest thing that we don't have it. So it's not as good as in person, but it's better than just on a phone call, especially with big teams and talking through really important creative ideas. So I felt really, really fortunate that we did feel that closer connection. And, oh, by the way, and I think Kat and Orchid were talking about this too, when major things happen this summer, very hard things, and even as recent as last week, like the ability to get on live and see people's faces and just be honest and talk about how sad you are or how hard it is, I just think brings a deeper human connection. And a deeper human connection means more trust, which means more creativity and better work.
It's so true. It's so true. I mean, I'm actually in the office today, and we are back. Our office has been open since a little after 4th of July, but obviously at very reduced capacity to comply with New York City laws and regulations. We are back up to 50%, although 50% of people are not coming in. But what's hard now, and I think for a little foreshadow for folks that maybe work at large organizations that aren't opening their doors up yet, with the cohorts and the 50-50 people coming in and some people working remote, one of the things we're struggling with is half of the people are now on Zoom and half of the people are in the room, realizing that that is actually pretty disruptive, because it's like if you're all on Zoom, you can see everyone and everyone's listening and the sound works. And then when you have half and half, we're really putting the pressure to our IT department to make sure we're set up in a way that some of us can be together and some of us can be remote, and it can still feel cohesive. I did a national sales meeting in August where we were able to pull that off, and we're going to do another one at the end of this month. And we can't fly everybody in from Chicago and Los Angeles and other places. So we have to make sure that experience for them isn't kind of awful. And I've been on the other end of that, where I've been out in LA with the smaller team out there and listening to the conference call in New York, and you can't hear any of the questions that are being asked. So I think that one advancement will happen is, remote working will get better for those people who are always remote. Because now we've used this technology more and everybody's comfortable. I think that will hopefully be good. One question for you from the audience, Kate, and I think we talked about it a little bit as well. But the question is, Domino's was very early to recognize the impact of the Hispanic market. And you mentioned, you came into a role with Hispanic marketing as your title, and it's still part of your responsibility. Do you have growth projections for this segment? And are there other sort of salient segments that you see emerging going forward?
Yeah, thank you. So yes, we have been early to invest and to drive national TV advertising, Spanish language advertising, and a big part of our Hispanic strategy is our local marketing, right? And being in our communities, we have to not only reflect them, but we have to speak to them how they want to be spoken to, and provide offers and marketing that is relevant to that consumer group. So that's been a big priority for us over many years. It's interesting, as big as we are, and because everyone loves pizza and our target is very much anyone with a mouth or stomach, there are many segments that are critical to us. We do a lot of mass marketing because there is value is relevant to all of our consumer segments, for example. So certainly millennials, Gen Z, we are watching and observing, and we continue to invest behind Hispanic marketing. But we also are always looking for how can we have the broadest reach and go far beyond traditional broadcast, which has been a lot of our focus these last few years.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to go back to too is when you described the hiring spot that you guys did all on Zoom, and we talked a lot about how you worked with your creative team remotely. Were there any key learnings that you took away in terms of the production value and the kind of how you did it before and how you are doing it today, and will that continue into the future in terms of being able to do more turnkey production on commercial creative?
I definitely think the world has shifted. We're not going back to these huge, long 8 to 12 month lead times. Having said that, the hiring spot, I think we saw an idea on a Wednesday, gave feedback, locked a script on a Friday. I got the franchisees on board that night, and we were filming on Saturday and Sunday and then into edit. So I'm not sure it's realistic to do things in 48 hours. Necessity is the mother of invention in many cases. And I don't know that production value is going to be acceptable long term. It certainly was, I think, in that unique moment. However, fast forward to the summer, we did productions, very efficiently, very quickly. We edited faster. We had many fewer people on set for safety reasons. And I just think once you force that kind of epic change in how you do things and how ideas come to be, I think we proved to ourselves that we can move faster, we can respond more quickly, and we can think about testing differently. So I'm really, really excited that we've proven it to ourselves on our operations side, but then also on the marketing and creative and advertising process side. So I really hope we can keep that level of risk taking kind of top of mind, because I think it's easy to slip back into complacency and what you're used to and what is the normal way of doing things. And there's been too much kind of progress made to slow that down.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we've had some really big wins this year for us, where for some of our partners that were kind of left with, like, again, big creative spots that maybe, or even just full creative, suites of digital and offline media that could not utilize those spots just due to the tone and the messaging and the imagery within them. We stepped up and did a lot of creative work for our partners. We leveraged our in-house production, our creative services team, and a lot of our talent. And what we're finding now is that some of our partners want to continue utilizing us in that capacity. So it's been kind of an advancement for us on the creative services side, where we'd always been dabbling there and doing our own creative, but now we're being tapped by our partners to do full, everything from big TV spots all the way to digital pre-roll to custom snap select ads, so it runs the gamut, and even, point of sale and retail creative work as well. So I do think that, you find new ways to do things. To your point, you move faster because you have to. And sometimes you find in partnerships some unique ways to partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, it's funny you say the partnership piece. I think that, is also a really interesting opportunity in this time. I mean, back at the end of last year, we launched a partnership with Epix. They have a catalog of over 2,000 movies streaming service. That we really were looking for something that could be relevant to consumers when they're at home and they're trying to entertain and engage their kids and themselves. I think the openness to partnership and just running fast and doing whatever it takes was a different tone than I think we would have found before COVID. People just really have opened themselves up to doing things quite differently, and I think consumers can benefit from that.
Couple other questions here from the audience. One does speak to the topic of, I think, just women overall in the workplace, not just in marketing. The question is, we've lost many women in the workforce as a result of that pandemic. Do you see any advantages that the work from home environment can provide to women in regards to equaling the playing field? Big question.
I mean, I hope so, but I think that the data suggests that it, at least recently, has actually been negative for women who, I think partially when you look at the why behind the data is women were taking on the virtual school and their roles and their jobs, and actually were under a lot of pressure to do more. I think that there are certainly advantages to working from home and having some balance without travel, potentially taking your kids to school and picking them up, and having a little more flexibility on when you work and how you work versus having to show up and be there for a certain amount of time. Yeah. But I don't know that I don't know that it's proving itself out right now.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. I find that, balancing all of that was nearly impossible for people who are trying to also work full time at home. It's just, you cannot do it all. And there was a point in time in some certain places, and certainly where, I live in New York, where the numbers were so scary, you were certainly not going to invite, a childcare professional or even a tutor into your home. So you really were kind of either leaving your kids to their own devices. Mine are old enough to try to do that sometimes. And other times, you just had to put your laptop down and focus on them. And that is hard. And there's going to have to be a lot of, I think we've almost taken steps back in this time, to be honest, instead of forward. It's just been so challenging for families, not just women, but
not just women, but my heart truly goes out to everyone. I mean, this has been tremendously stressful, and trying to do it all and do it, and do the best for your kids when they're socially isolated. It's been tremendously hard. And, there've been a lot of heroes through this whole thing that have, and I just say, don't give up. I know we're all just hoping and waiting to get through this.
Yeah. One question here, this is a good one to kind of maybe wrap it up on. If there was something you could go back to that, has changed and besides the office, because I think it's funny, we all miss the office now that, we've been away from them for so long, but besides the office, is there something you feel like we need to kind of get back to?
There are just some intangibles that the office does provide, is that human connection. I think we're all trying to do different things, whether it's have happy hours, or my team at the end of the year did paint by numbers together and just kind of hung out. And, there's all these ways we're trying to make it feel connected. And, but it's hard because you and I have talked, you don't have those spontaneous moments, it's all sort of scheduled. And so I think that, we just have to make sure we're always communicating. We're sharing strategy. We're sharing the why. We're checking in. We're picking up the phone instead of just this exhausting Zoom all the time, and just checking in on people and how are they doing? What do they need? What support do they need? So, I mean, and like, I traveled a ton. Half of it, I'm so happy to be home, but I do miss a little of it, because those conversations at dinner or over a drink that just go deeper personally, but also thinking big about the strategy, you just can't do that over a computer.
Yeah, that is 100% it for me, is like the connection, with people. And I am coming in the office enough to get a little of that FaceTime with folks. And it's actually, we really kind of ramped that up over the last few weeks, just before and right after the break. And I feel the difference. You see someone in the hallway that's maybe not on your team and you wouldn't think to call, but they see you walking by and they're like reminded of that question they wanted to ask you, or that idea they thought they'd, bounce off of you. And, for us, it's like, our head of esports, just saw me in the hallway and asked me a question, and our whole strategy is changing. And my team weren't really involved in the conversation or aware of it even happening. So, those types of things just get lost. And so I think human interaction is important. And to your point, like with partners or with potential customers or potential partners, to be able to have FaceTime and get to know people. I mean, it's amazing. I've hired a bunch of people over the course of the last year and not met some of them in person along the way. And then when I meet them, I feel like I do know them. So that's kind of interesting. Again, I think Zoom and all these video conferencing services have really made this manageable. But then that in-person, like team happy hours, dinner with a client, there's just, relationships matter. They really do. And in this business, they've always mattered. And I think that they always will. And then there's just, it's some of us who travel, it was exhausting as it is. It's something that we all love doing, right? Or we wouldn't have been in this
a little
job.
Bit of an escape, let's be honest.
So while I'm not missing Vegas this week, and probably a lot of people are, I miss my trips to visit my LA team, my Chicago team, and all our partners in those markets, and even beyond that. And so I look forward to getting back to that and coming to this Brand Innovators event when it actually is happening inside of Domino's headquarters.
Yeah, can't wait for that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, hopefully you guys are high on the list when things do reopen.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, Kate, thank you so much. This was great. I'll turn it back over to David. And then for anyone who is joining, there is a happy hour this evening that I'm co-hosting. So feel free to pop in there for some casual conversation and drinks.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you both. I mean, yeah, I know Vegas isn't everybody's favorite place to be, but there's definitely something, again, we have the content running during the day. There's something magical about you go, then you have drinks, then you have dinner, you schmooze, you build new relationships. I think that's really, not easy to do. I mean, we try to do this kind of stuff virtually, and it's tough, but, we do appreciate you both being here. Hopefully you guys have a great relationship now. We built it, and strengthened it here through today's, virtual event. So we're going to continue, I know, on our side, looking at ways to, innovate and come up with new ideas for that kind of experiential element. But until, and then we'll look for that light at the end of the tunnel and back at Domino's headquarters or any of the other brands that have been hosting our events. So we'll let you know as soon as we're ready to do that, when it's safe to do so. But in the meantime, we thank you both for being on our virtual stage. This was wonderful.